Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies, your host. We are going to have a great show for you today. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning, Texas. Good morning, the United States of America. And of course, good morning to the world. We have listeners from all over. Welcome to Politics Done Right. We are going to have a great show for you. We have today, for the foreseeable till the election at least, a great person in house with us. But before we get there, let's throw it to the two geniuses in our control room. Good morning, Jack. Good morning, Howard.
You say that, but we haven't seen any genius around here yet.
How are you, Fred?
I have. Hey, listen. Wait. I'm going to stop Howard right now. I'm going to tell the entire audience. Okay.
No.
Yesterday, yes. Yesterday we had a great show, but it teetered on the tip because we had all kinds of transmitter issues. But that one guy in that studio who knows the entire system found a way to make sure that you got Politics Done Right, that you got Democracy Now!, that you got You Talk, because he went out there to make sure that even with all the dire straits, it happened. That's what happens when you have great folks out there. Howard,
Jack, that was a great job you did on that.
Yeah, thanks, Fred.
Well, okay. I didn't finish with it though, and Jack stayed in that studio, in that control room, and working in tandem with Brother Howard made it happen. Folks, this is community radio. This is radio that you are the ones responsible for. So when we come out there and say, hey, support the program, this is the kind of people we're talking about. Anyway, I'm throwing it right back to Howard and then Jack.
Okay, well, what happened yesterday is the internet went out at the transmitter. So the transmitter actually was okay, and we were transmitting just fine. However, we weren't able to get the stream from the studio to the internet through the internet because the internet was not being received, and it's still not being received right now. So I've got to go back out there and figure out what's going on. I don't exactly know what to do because I'm not really an engineer. So I'm just out there guessing. And thank God for Jack sitting back here at the studio. I was sitting there with my laptop in my car with a hotspot on the phone saying, okay, Jack, get ready. And he says, okay, I'm ready. And he took it like a pro. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better job on this side. And if anybody knows how to fix an internet problem at a transmitter, 713-526-5728, extension 2. Now, Jack, I believe, has some wisdom for us this morning.
Go ahead, Jack.
Good morning, Egberto.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, the spin doctors use fear against the people. They tell you there is something wrong with another group, person, or culture to pre-opinionate and pre-prejudice you to them. They're all people just like me and you. They live, they laugh, they love. Don't believe the spin.
Wow. I like all the pre-this and pre-that you brought up, Jack, because that is exactly right. And when we realize that we're all in the same boat together, then we're going to actually make progress. And in that light, we have a great, first of all, let me tell you what the program is titled today. The program is titled Neil Aquino on Mealer, Ramaswamy using the GOP, Bash calls out Representative Nancy Grace's hypocrisy. So Neil Aquino will be talking about like Alexandra Mealer's attorney bailing out on her and quite a bit more. And if we get to it, we're going to talk about Mace's MAGA proclivity that's been exposed in a very civil manner. The way that Dana Bash did it, she did it so effectively that yesterday when I played it on the 3 o'clock show, one of our listeners said, Egberto, why did you play that? There was no action there. And I'm like, if you thought there was no action there, that is exactly what she did correctly. She was civil in pointing out, get rid of the hypocrisy. So, I mean, it was great what she did last night. And then the third topic, of course, is about Ramaswamy using the GOP. But we may not get to all of those. If we don't get to all of those, because what Neil Aquino has to talk about and what you may want to call in about is very important. Folks, before we get started, remember 90.1 FM on the dial if you're in the Houston metropolitan area. The the TuneIn application can be downloaded from the Android or Apple store if you want to listen to it on your phone via an application, or you can go directly to our kpft.org website and click on listen to the program there. But remember, if you're already there, don't even think about it. Just say, hey, I have a few extra ducats in my wallet. I'm going to go ahead and keep this program, this station on air. Because why? Because we know we're going to get the unadulterated truth in the programs or our great eclectic music. You can also watch us on Facebook.com/KPFT Houston. Again, that is Facebook.com/KPFT Houston, where you can see the handsome Neil Aquino sitting right next to me on the screen. You can also go and listen on YouTube, where you can see both of us again at politicsdoneright.tv. Again, that is politicsdoneright.tv. Don't forget that you can also get the podcast with all the outtakes and clips at politicsdoneright.com/podcast. Drop me a line at KPFT@politicsdoneright, KPFT@politicsdoneright. If you don't like the program, if you like the program, if you want me to cover something, we are here for you. Remember, this is your program. That's why every morning you get that newsletter that tells you what the program is about. But do remember that if you call in and change the program is yours. You can always go to the newsletter to see the videos and outtakes that we prepared for you. But anyway, without further ado, Neil Aquino from the Houston Democracy Project is in the house. And I'd like to welcome you once again. It's Thursday, and I told you we want to have this local information, make sure we keep our citizenry aware. Welcome to Politics Done Right, Neil.
Good morning, Houston. Thank you, Egberto, for having me on again. And good morning, everyone in Houston and Texas and across the nation. And I like that you said that folks could change the program with their calls. I read an article in the New York Times a couple of days ago about the Webb telescope and how it was changing our theories of the cosmos. And it talked about a universe that could be changed by observation. I didn't quite understand it, but your talk about the viewer, the listener or viewer being able to call and change the topic of the program made me think of that. I wish I had some scientific knowledge to back up what I just said.
Well, I think that's good enough.
Trying to draw out the analogy. I'm Neil Aquino. I'm with the Houston Democracy Project. It's at neilaquino.com, NEILAQUINO, neilaquino.com, or you can Google Houston Democracy Project. And the point of the project is to make democracy a top issue in 2023 Houston politics and to help strengthen, organize, inspire pro-democracy coalitions in Houston and Harris County. And the project will be up and running at least through November of 2024, our primaries and general election. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here on Thursdays. And if folks have questions about local elections, call in and ask.
You know, what is great also, I want to let folks know your political chops in that this is one of the organizers of the group that pickets once a week, every week on John Cornyn. John Cornyn, you know, is our state senate, or not our state, our senator to D.C., who's done quite a few things that this group makes aware. How many consecutive weeks have you guys done this?
The John Cornyn Houston office protest every Tuesday, 11:30 to 1, 5300 Memorial Drive is at 343 weeks and counting. And so we're there about Senator Cornyn, but we're there most of all to make the point about physically showing up, that in addition to voting, I want to make sure everyone hears that, that in addition to voting, we're going to have to show up physically and non-conventionally for the fights about democracy and white supremacy ahead. And we're at a busy intersection at Memorial and Dietering. And we have a social media following, and we want to set the physical example of showing up, and the favorable reactions are always about 20 to 1 positive, but we're there through the heat and the weather, and people have thrown softballs at us and eggs and and charcoal rolled us, where you rev up your truck and spit the smoke at us. And also, let me say, at the Cornell Memorial in Dietering, please observe the red light.
Now, let me tell you, folks, the reason I like to have Neil on about having your bodies out there is we have a tendency too often. And, sometimes I hear it online here, and I try to give the necessary encouragement for people to be active participant, whether you are here in the Houston metropolitan area, whether you're here in Texas, whether you're here in whatever part of the country or the world. The most important part of politics is showing up. And even if you don't like the word politics affects you. Even if you don't participate physically in politics, you are participating in politics. Again, if you are not participating, you're supporting the other side. And when I say the other side, I'm not talking Republican and Democrat. I'm talking about that which you don't necessarily want or agree with. So it's important for us to engage, and having an example like Brother Aquino here that shows that the presence of body makes a difference. The presence in the body politic makes sure that you will be respected. And that is what occurs. If politicians do as they please because they know they get away with it. But you know what? Your one vote, and Howard talks about this all of the times, your one vote is no different than the one vote generated by Exxon, the one vote generated by Data General, the one vote generated by any major corporation that has the ears of the politician. If the politician was sure that your voice would make a difference, then the lobbyists would not matter, because their main purpose is to be elected, and it's by all means necessary. Anyway, tell us a little bit about what you're here to talk about today, Mr. Aquino.
Well, let me. So we are going to talk about Mealer. Let's run on that theme we're talking about still about showing up, and that comes to a little bit of an aspect of the Cornyn protest I wanted to talk to you today. That's also part of the democracy plan. So we're there on our corner, and someone's paying attention, because in the 6.5 years we've been there, we've had over, we calculate about 1,300 HPD units watching us. So someone's paying attention, and they're sort of there to protect us, and sort of there to protect the building, and I think sort of there for some easy duty, behind tinted windows. But it certainly has caught people's official attention, and you will see that just the fact of autonomous political action will get the attention of people in power. And the interesting thing about our group is that we have the same views as the majority of Houstonians. The majority of Houstonians didn't vote for Cornyn, and most of our regular crew over the years is just mainstream Democrats, and they have seen that they have to physically show up. So there's a man who about 5 weeks ago threw a softball at us, missed me by about a foot and bounced on Memorial Drive. And he came out again last week and started throwing some more things at us. He's up on a 5th floor balcony, and he comes out, and we got the police watching us. We got the police to talk to the guy. They didn't want to talk to the guy. But we got the police to talk to the guy, and they kind of blamed us. They said, yeah, he shouldn't be throwing things, but they blamed us for being a disruptive presence there. So they turned it around on us. And we have a pro bono lawyer who we use. And if you're engaged in a consistent protest action, you should try to have access to legal representation. And if you think that these things don't matter to you, to your practice of politics now, let me just reemphasize, the majority of our crew probably was Hillary over Bernie. These are precinct executives. These are mainstream folks who are just seeing the authoritarian bent of our politics, feel the need to show up, with an average age in their 60s and 70s. This lawyer who we used made clear to me that we should fill out an HPD incident report, whether they want it or not. And if HPD won't take it, then we're going to send a letter. And it's important that you don't let aggressive acts stop you. We had a man who still comes by who throws things at us, and he takes the hands off of the wheel and swears at us and uses words that I don't even use in my mind, frankly. And he threw eggs at us a couple times, and it took a year and a half, but we got HPD in the city to prosecute him with a Class C misdemeanor. We worked it. And there was some concern, well, what if he comes with a gun, or this is a pain, this is a hassle. But don't let people, the right uses violence, uses intimidation, and they'll use it against the most moderate group of people, which in many ways the Cornyn protest is.
Your protest is definitely a moderate protest.
It is a moderate at this, right. It's moderate in that it's almost conservative in that we just want to have free elections and we want to exercise our First Amendment rights.
Neil, I want to stop you for a second there because I don't want to gloss over something that you said that is very important. Neil pointed out that there is a person throwing softballs and Johnny, I'm coming to you in a minute. There's a person throwing softballs at this moderate legal protest, and the law enforcement, the police officers, comes and blames the protesters for somebody effecting violence on them. Second, yes, there is a person throwing eggs at this moderate protesting group, and the police officers do nothing until they get a lawyer and force a misdemeanor charge. I want to equate that to MAGA and the MAGA folks that were arrested finally and thrown in jail. If you notice, once you went ahead and the law enforcement did its job, what it does is it mitigates further action. Donald Trump has been calling out on all his people to come out and protest as he is being indicted from state to state. Notice the crowds aren't there. The crowds are not there because law enforcement, something that the Republican Party used to stand for, because law enforcement placed hundreds of these people who broke the law in jail. Others are now fearful to come out and break the law on behalf of Donald Trump. I want folks to understand that there is your small protest compared to, let's say, a Trump rally. Simply making sure that law enforcement occurs, it saves lives, and it also ensures the peace. I needed to reiterate that. Come on in again. Before, I tell you what, let's drop this and bring Johnny into the conversation, and then we'll continue. Come on in, Johnny.
First of all, Berto, I want to thank you for starting out the show, thanking and pointing out, for the benefit of the listeners out there. A lot of us listening out here don't necessarily always have an idea that there's something technical challenging you guys in real time. And you guys seem to manage to pull it off most of the time.
Well, I mean, Johnny, you see, I kind of forced the issue because Howard is too damn humble for given the amount of work that he get to keep this stuff on air. I mean, he makes stuff look easy. But this is not easy. This is being intuitive and being able to do the damn stuff that you got to get done. And I think it is important for people to know what's actually going on in a small radio station that they support, that they build. There's a lot of stuff happening and a lot of people making sure that things happen. So thank you for noting that, Johnny. Continue, please.
I agree with that. Before I make my question to your guest, I want to continue with this first point that, Howard, you got to realize that we all, on our side of the aisle, we don't tout our horn enough. And as much as I dislike Joe Biden, and I know Joe Biden doesn't represent Johnny, and he doesn't listen to Johnny, and he doesn't follow any of Johnny's policy points, still, Joe Biden and his surrogates, they don't tout the horn enough. Donald Trump, he signs one check with a gigantic life support cardiac signature, and that's a big deal. Even though it's not his money, he didn't spend his money for the American people. That's taxpayer money that he signed a check. Remember that relief check, $300?
Yes, I do.
Big deal. They go overboard on the other side, and we, on the extreme on our side, zero, zip, nada in comparison.
Right.
And I want to segue that to my question for your guest.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I love the idea, actually, that you guys have enough volunteers to show up on a regular basis like clockwork. There's a disadvantage to that. Obviously, you guys have already figured that out because you guys telegraph your moves, so to speak, to use a boxing analogy. They know, these haters know on their way to work every day. They realize who these people are they see standing out there, those damn liberals. Even though you've already admitted that a lot of these folks are in their 60s and 70s, and they're Hillary supporters, centrist Democrats, rather than far left-wingers like myself. So they hate on you guys. They see us all. They paint us all the same broad brush, and then they think they've got the right to throw softballs and eggs and stuff. And I am so glad that you pursued the legal action against the guy throwing the eggs. Because if you don't put these people in check, guess what? The next time it is going to be a gun. That's the reality that we're living with when we have people who are dumbed down by their dumb public education system that Republicans have been undermining and micromanaging since I was a kid. And now our public school education is on life support. Our UPS has been made, our United States Postal Service has been turned into a quasi-private business that has to turn profits. I have to, every time I send my monthly money order to the credit card company, every month I show up and they're charging 5, 10, 20 cents more for the money order. It's up to $2 now when it was $1.15 not too long ago. That's Louis DeJoy. That Republican in charge of the UPS.
Unfortunately, Johnny, there are too many complicits in the Democratic side. The truth of the matter is, if we really wanted to get rid of DeJoy, there were mechanisms that we could have used to get rid of DeJoy. So, in as much as we thank the president for doing some good work with working with the progressives on the IRA, which is Build Back Better, on a minute version of Build Back Better, as well as on the infrastructure project, which really is a panacea for the corporate state. We need to have more strength behind the things that we need to get done. Because again, you're correct. If we don't be careful, they will try to turn the post office into a profit center, which it's not supposed to be. It is supposed to be a way that Americans can keep in touch with Americans. And yes, we have the internet now, but still that particular agency needs to adopt new technologies to make it easier for Americans to be in touch with Americans. That is what it's all about. Continue, my brother.
My question for Mr. Aquino, given that you guys, I'm guessing, you correct me if I'm wrong, I'm guessing you guys could use a whole lot more volunteers, especially from different ages and younger, high school age and college age people, when they have spare time, when they're not going to school and work and studying and doing their homework and stuff, and the older folks who are starting their families. I know this is a challenge. But what do you think of the strategy of also having a group of volunteers who are dedicated to presenting an asymmetrical response? In other words, not the same predictable time and the same predictable day of the week every week where you become targets, but in addition to supplement, you have another group of volunteers who show up unannounced. Times when the used car salesman, John Cornyn, doesn't know when these other people are going to show up and what they're going to be up to. What kind of rascally moves are they going to make? Do you have the ability to have enough volunteers to fill that function?
Not to my knowledge. Let me tell you, it takes a lot to. Well, let me for your first point. I was a community radio programmer about 30 years ago, and I'm still Facebook friends with Eric and Mark, who were the two engineers at WAIF 88.3 Cincinnati, Ohio. And so they were wizards, and you'd have a problem and we could call them 9 or 10 in the evening and say, something's not working. So thank you to the technical staff, and I remember their help from 35 years ago, making sure that the broadcast went out. A second crew, it takes a lot to sustain the first crew. And I'm not, we talk about, we'll have 15 folks and we'll say, boy, I sure wish it was 15,000. And I think someday it will be 15,000. I think I picture someday a great march for down Memorial Drive, down to the Galleria or something. But it is hard to find.
Johnny, let me interject here, because I think this is what you just said is important, and it kind of ties in with something that Eric says on the chat here. Eric says that people don't all act the same by nature. Some people don't have that. They don't want to go out there and be the activists by nature. Most people aren't actually. And the other thing that I think is implied by what Eric says is, for those who want to do that, Neil Aquino and the crew that runs with him, that is great. That is one form of action. Now, you, Johnny, you brought up another form of action that doesn't have to have anything to do with Neil Aquino and the Democracy Project. If somebody is sufficiently perturbed with the bad stuff that Cornyn is doing, supporting the president by the governor by having the killer buoys in the Rio Grande River, they go out there. They don't have to be in coordination with Neil Aquino. That's the great thing about democracy. So your idea about people just going out and doing that, Johnny, the mere fact that you said that on air may give the impetus for somebody else to go out and say, you know what, today I feel it. And it's not the constancy that Neil Aquino has, but I am going to go out there and do something in the body politic. I'm going to go with a sign. Me, myself, and I tell you what, we did here in Kingwood, a very conservative town. A few of us got together and created Occupy Kingwood, and we stayed on the corner of West Lake Houston and Kingwood Drive, and we did it for 52 consecutive weeks. Okay, 52. I remember there was one day it was thunderstorming, and my wife is like, "You're not going out today, right?" And I'm like, "Nope. I have to be out there." I was I documented it, as well as I was one of the organizers for it. And I said, somebody has to be there in case somebody shows up. And I went out there and I asked her to come and film me with the sign with magic markers. It's storming, it's raining, and the magic marker stuff is running with us talking about the things that we stood for. And believe it or not, as the morning went along, people started to show up in the rain. Oh. The idea being, you can always be involved, but it starts with you. Anyway, Johnny, thank you so kindly for calling. As usual, always have something of interest to say. If you have anything real short, 10 seconds, so we can continue with the program.
Yeah, I do. My asymmetrical action, whether or not Mr. Key knows it now, because I'm about to tell you. I am a thorn in the side, a voicemail thorn in the side of not only John, the used car salesman Cornyn, but a whole bunch of Republicans in the Senate and the House. I constantly make nasty, insulting, angry, and sometimes taunting, funny voicemail messages. Sometimes I get lucky and a staff person picks up, and I have a little discussion if you.
Well, Johnny, I'm gonna cut the mayor out for now and say thank you. And not only that, but you are doing your part. And again, you are doing your part. Thank you.
You know what Greta Thunberg went through when she started by herself, right?
You have a good one, my brother. We talk later, okay? All right. Come on in, Aquino.
Let me make 2 points about that conversation, and thank you for the call. Pointing out, the caller says, that he's to the left of Biden, and let me. I don't want to neglect our crew who is to the left of Biden, but I just want to point out that we elected Joe Biden. We were asked, by Congressman Clyburn, and back 3 years ago, we elected this ultimate establishment. I'm not using the word pejoratively in this case. We elected this 45-year senator and vice president, a moderate, the epitome of Washington, and still the right is calling him communist and socialist and every name in the book. So if you think these things aren't relevant to you, or that you might someday need to be on the street, or whatever the action is, it's coming for you as well, just as it came as reference for our school board. And then secondly, Egberto's point about whatever my father used to use, we'd go to the racetrack and he'd use the term horses for their courses. So some horses ran at a distance, some ran in the mud, some were sprinters. So whatever the right action is for you is the right action. So whether that's on the street or whether that's volunteering or whether that is
making phone calls.
What's that?
No, I said making phone calls, as Johnny said he does.
Yeah. Whatever that right course is for you, is the right course. So I'm suggesting, a course of action, being on the corner, 1130 to 1, 5300 Memorial Drive, every Tuesday. And people who show up for just once or twice. We have a regular crew, an intermittent crew, and folks who turn up out of the blue. A young lady brought us some Gatorade 2 weeks ago, just out of the blue. I mean, we made sure it was sealed real tight. And, when people brought us stuff, we kind of eye it. But whatever you're doing is right, and what you're doing, and you can do more than one type of thing, and you may feel pressed to act in some different way as circumstances change. But I think it's important. I think it's a great point that we've been on, because sometimes people will hear about a street action that I'm talking about, which does require some privilege. It requires that ability to be there. Consistently requires the help.
I want to stop you there, because you've made a very important point right there. I think it's more important than many would see. Not everybody has the privilege to be able to get on the streets at 2 in the afternoon, at 1 in the afternoon, at 11 in the morning, up to whatever time it is that you guys perform. And that is why it is so important that those who participate themselves have the knowledge of not only the privilege that they have to do that, but the privilege to represent those who can't be there. Because the mere fact that they can be there likely speaks to that they are not in the condition of many others. And they have to be cognizant of that, so that what they represent is not only who they are, but those others that they're representing. That's an important point that you brought up there, Neil.
Yeah, we're very cognizant of others who are representing, and we have some of the same folks who honk us. And again, the positive honks are and the positive responses, the thumbs up. There's a traffic light where if you're there, you're stuck for 4 minutes. But representing others is something we're very, and when we have no exit strategy, regretfully, I guess. Because we don't see this circumstance ending. So we're cognizant of people who on social media or on driving by are looking for us, and we're cognizant of that responsibility.
Okay, let's go ahead and bring in Teresa into the conversation. Teresa, come on in.
Hi, Berto. How you doing?
Good morning, ma'am.
I was wondering about legislation that is passed in Texas. I noticed, when the former president took office, there were several demonstrations. There were 3 that I can think of right away, and they were very well attended. But I'm wondering if, since that happened, if the cost of having a demonstration or a public march is maybe being cost prohibitive. I know they need to put up porta potties and they need to block off streets and such, but I'm wondering, are the powers that be making it too difficult for people to actually hold an event, for people, just for you to see a body of people that feels angry or wants to implement change or make a statement. So I'm just wondering if Neil, has any information about what's been passed in Texas about coming after people or threatening people that come out for peaceful demonstrations?
Neil?
Okay, so that's a great question and a relevant question this week. So, what you're referencing maybe, and I don't want to put your words or thoughts in your mouth, but what you're referencing maybe initially were the big women's march. It was a huge women's march here in Houston.
Right.
At the time of the initial women's march in January of 2021. And that's a big logistical effort. And there have been other marches. There was a second women's march. And then there was the big, the 60,000 person George Floyd march during the pandemic. That was huge and was policed like a camp or a fortress. Those things are difficult to organize. I've never organized at that scale, and very frequently when they get that large, they are, for example, that George Floyd march was officially sanctioned by Mayor Turner, and Mayor Turner and Chief Acevedo kind of used that march actually to temper down public anger about George Floyd or the public response. And I'm not saying that positively. It was good that the march was peaceful, although there's no reason to expect that it wouldn't have been. But they used that then to sort of focus the response to a fairly muted city response to the police issues brought up. So those big marches are rare and difficult. I want to make the point also, though. So a second point, I'll make three, that the First Amendment itself is your permit. So we have no permit. Sometimes people will think that we have a permit, but we are on the sidewalk at Memorial and Dietering, and there's no infrastructure to that. And people will assume that there's some legal barrier to you protesting. And there's not. You can go to City Hall and have a protest. Now, I remember one time there was an event, the Houston, the Sunrise kids, the climate activists, they wanted to have a march or an event at City Hall, and there was a gingerbread festival. It was near Christmas. So they had to go across the street to Tranquility Park. But I want to make clear that there is no legal inhibition to you having a protest. The First Amendment is your permit. And then the third point, and please pay attention to the indictments by the state of Georgia in the Cop City. There were indictments and cops, the protesters for the police training facility in Atlanta. So the caller asked, what are the laws? They are using RICO from the same place where the Donald Trump indictments are coming from, a criminal conspiracy. They're using RICO laws to involve all of these people who in some cases apparently just handed out flyers or may have used derogatory terms towards police. These were not people who were destroying property. And they are talking about people who were engaged in mutual aid, submitting to bail funds. There have been bail funds here. After the George Floyd protests, there were bail funds. And this is why I keep saying, if you think this doesn't pertain to you, it does. It's not difficult to envision a circumstance where the legislature doesn't have Ted Cruz losing. This is all really relevant to each of us. And they are working, words like they are nebulous, but forces within the state are working to make protest difficult.
And it's not only, let me just point this out, Teresa, before I come back to you, this is not only a Republican thing, okay? Because right now we have Foods Not Bomb that's doing some very good work in Houston, and they're giving these people tickets as a way to shut that down. We have a city with a huge homeless population, a huge hungry population, and instead of the city spending its money to really aid in that regards, they are are throwing tickets in the amounts of thousands and thousands of dollars against Foods Not Bombs. Houston Peace and Justice Center is doing some work in helping these guys fund these tickets. They had a short win in the courts recently, but again, Mayor Turner and others continue to prosecute and persecute these people that are doing good things on the false premise that somehow it's going to affect the library. But of course, these people are out there when the library is closed. So we are going to have to take our own streets back, our own city back, and stop allowing those that simply are there to make life comfortable for those who have it easy and not protect all of us. Alistair Waters, welcome to Politics Done Right on the Internet, as well as Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain. Welcome to Politics Done Right. Teresa, anything else you want to ask real quick before we move on?
No, I just think that we need to pay a little bit more attention to what people are doing in Austin to kind of squelch or, repress any opportunities. I know that somebody last year wanted to help organize some sort of demonstration. I don't know if last year or the year before, but it was very, very expensive to do something like that. And that might be the way that they stop that.
Now, if it's organized, Teresa, you have to follow all these rules, right? But if it's loosely organized, it's free speech, as Neil spoke about. Now, if it's organized, there's all these ordinances that you have to go through, which in your case, we need to do something about that to ensure that our politicians don't create ordinances that limits people from being able to act as a group. Go ahead, Neil. I saw you wanted to say something.
So Teresa, and let me make sure. So something you could be referencing, there were aggressive actions by the department, the DPS troops. Those are the same troops that John Whitmire wants to be policing the streets of Houston. The DPS troops were very super aggressive with trans people in the Capitol building. So and to get those folks or any folks to the Capitol building can require buses and an infrastructure. Also, there have been laws, and I don't know if Texas has enacted it, but I sure do think about it. I know that Florida has enacted some of those, so that 10 of us are having a protest and someone breaks a window, or someone we don't know comes and breaks a window for whatever reason, or we're perceived as doing something. And they're using these RICO laws, and this has been discussed in Texas. All 10 of you are guilty of a felony. So that may be something you're referencing. And I'm sorry I don't have the specific answer. I don't know if that passed, but I want to make sure I address.
Actually, Florida, I don't know if it's what you're talking about, but Florida has laws similar to that right now. And these are all things to hold back on protesting,
yes.
on protests. So, I mean, we have to be careful with that. Anyway, Neil, we're you wanted to say something about Mealer. Let's get into that because we don't have a whole lot of time here. And by the way, folks, you can give us a call at 713-526-5738. 713-526-5738. Extension number 2 gets you on air right away. Come on in, Neil.
So about a week ago, so there are 20 lawsuits still moving through the Texas courts that would undo 20 election results here in Harris County and cause a redo of the elections. That's what's being sought by defeated Republicans. You may have heard the first case was heard a few weeks ago between Aaron Lunsford, a defeated judge, and Tamika Kraft, the woman who beat her. And they're trying to undo it. And the judge, a retired Republican who seems like a decent person, will be issuing his ruling in a couple of weeks. That trial went first because it was further along in discovery because it had been filed earlier. The other 20 cases will be heard by Judge Peoples in September or October in one trial or two. And there are pretrial hearings that I've been watching that are available to the public. Alexandra Mealer, who lost by 18,000 votes, had an attorney, Elizabeth Alvarez, who I couldn't tell if Alvarez had fired Mealer or they had come at odds. But Mealer Alvarez no longer represents Mealer because Alvarez said that Mealer was alleging fraud, and Alvarez wasn't seeing the fraud. So there's this 18,000 vote margin. Mealer initially was saying that we're just talking about irregularities in the voting. Then she started going down a further, harder right. So you might remember her signs. They were all over, those green and white signs for Mealer. They're all over the county. She has changed the design of those signs, at least digitally. I haven't seen one physically, digitally. And they now say, Mealer, hold Harris County, hold Texas. Right now, so who are they holding it from? The majority of voters who keep voting Democratic. It's not, and so she continues to be out there with Mattress Mac and pushing this line. But apparently she went too far even for her own Republican attorney. And the Republican attorney said about the fraud, if she had requested such during the course of representation, meaning talking about fraud, we would have referred her out to another lawyer. So there you have a lawyer who's still involved with these cases, and the Texas Supreme Court is a lousy place, and that's where these cases are headed, but who doesn't want to hear that there was fraud, and we keep hearing over and over and over that there was fraud.
This is a new Republican tactic. First of all, anybody who thinks that a Republican in Harris County has the advantage has to be dreaming. Even in a tight election, probability and statistics tell you that a Democrat is likely to win in Harris County. Harris County is a dark blue county, just like is Travis County, just like is Bexar County, just like is El Paso. Okay, let's be clear here. These are blue holdouts. No matter what the rest of Texas is, that's who we are. And to come into this place and try to make it otherwise, and then it is undemocratic what they're doing. But it's not only being done here in Texas; it's being done all over where Republicans decide they are going to challenge winners. In other words, if they lost the race, they don't accept that they lost the race, and they continue to fight for the race. It's a standard autocratic, fascistic move. And we just have to make people be aware of it, number one. And number two, we have to make sure that people come out and vote every single election, whether it is school board, whether it is whatever board it is, whatever election it is, you have to make your vote heard. Otherwise, these guys will continue with the bullying as trying to take over your democracy. And it's something that cannot be allowed. So, Neil, the fact that this attorney saw the light, and many others are seeing it. Many of the folks who have left either left the Republican Party or put themselves on hold because they understand what's going on is not democracy. Right. That's where we're at. We have to get serious about this. All right, Neil, what else do you have here for Houston politics, which actually is reflected? This is a bellwether. Harris County is a bellwether county. So what happens in Harris County is something that's reflected throughout the country.
That's right. And there are Republican narratives out there to get back to that hold Harris County, hold Texas theme. There are Republican narratives out there that if they lose Texas, that they won't be able to win presidential elections. And that's a fact. And I things other than look at Twitter. I have a full life outside of this, but you will see people drawing the line that if we lose Texas, we'll lose the United States and we'll lose the Western world. You've got these people sitting around, equating what happens in Harris County with the fate of the entire conservative movement. And once you're a not very nice person to begin with, and you create that rationale, you'll do anything. You'll make any claim. You'll engage in any act. I want to talk about the Houston Democracy Project. One of the things I'm seeking to do is get candidates to add democracy, municipal Houston City Council candidates to add democracy to their website. And this speaks to the power of the average citizen, albeit privileged in many respects, but individual folks can make a difference. So I've had one-on-one conversations with members of council, and I've gotten 4 Houston City Council candidates, Ivan Sanchez in District J,
Right.
Obes Navarra in at-large 2, Conchita Reyes in at-large 1, and Danelle Cooper in at-large 3 to add language. Ethan Michelle Gons, running in at-large 3, actually use that language on their own, to their credit. So there are 5 at least municipal candidates. If you go to their website, they are, and this doesn't inhibit them from talking about flooding. They can talk about crime.
But democracy is important. Yeah.
Anything they want. Right.
Yeah. All right, then, Neil, I got a call. I got a call that I need to go ahead and take. But before I go on to Brian, I want to tell the audience online that is asking about Lina Hidalgo resigning. She has no intentions of resigning. Lina Hidalgo is our county commissioner and will remain our county commissioner. She's on a leave of absence, just something that she deserves, or anybody in her, as she does, deserve it, period. Period. So get it out of the air. Lina Hidalgo will be back. Come on in, Brian.
Yeah, I would like to talk about election denial.
Sure, go ahead.
Like Stacey Abrams has Stacey Abrams ever conceded that she lost?
She conceded. No. Hold 1 second. This is a fact-based show. Wait a minute, sir. Brian, you asked the question, I'll answer it, and then you can continue to talk. Did she ever concede the election? She came on air and said, this guy got more votes. Her complaint was, this guy was the Secretary of State as he ran for governor, which means he had control of how the election was run. That is like saying, I am running for a position, but I'm controlling how the votes are counted. That has never occurred specifically in these other states where you have the person controlling the election is also running. And you, Brian, given that I've heard you talk before, you would have been complaining if a Democrat was a Secretary of State controlling the election as they ran for governor. Let's be honest. This is an honesty zone here. Continue, my friend.
Okay. 2016. Who denied the presidential election?
In 2000, wait a minute.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. Let's put it into let's not try to make things the same, though, my friend. Hillary, the day after, conceded. You asked the question, I'm answering it, sir. Hillary Clinton at first did not, she waited for the numbers to come in. And when it was absolutely sure that she lost, she conceded the election. She wasn't happy about it, but she conceded. Donald Trump has yet to concede the election. So let's talk apples, and let's simply speak the truth. Continue, my friend.
Okay, and then who came up with Russian collusion? Russia. They denied him every single right as the presidency. No, he's not my president. What was the Mueller report?
Okay, let's stop right there again. There is the interpretation of the Mueller report as was done by Barr, who himself came out against his own interpretation of the result. He lost he came out, and everyone as well, including Barr, will tell you categorically that Russia was involved in our election, but they've always been involved in our election. But again, more so for Donald Trump. It's not up for questioning. We know where the ads came from. We know where the manipulations came from. And it's also within the report that you just mentioned. Barr simply didn't talk about it when he gave that initial report, but it is in the report. If you care to read the report about the role Russia played, don't listen to Fox News. Go read it yourself. If you'd like, I'll find you the passages for you. Go ahead. Continue, my friend.
I don't listen to Fox News.
Well, you're listening to my dear friend, you're listening to somebody that's giving you bad information if you didn't read the report, because I did.
Okay. The Durham report.
Yes.
Have you read it?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's what I've just told you. My brother has the information that says Russia was involved in the election. It's in that report. The reason they didn't address... look, sir, did you read the report, sir?
No, I did not.
Okay, stop right there. I just told you I read the report, and I told you there are instances where they mention about what Russia's involvement is, and not only that, they mention what Trump involvement with, but they could not touch Trump because Trump at the time was the president. All of that is in the report, sir.
Okay. So now, yeah, well, I'm gonna need to go one other thing.
Yes, sir.
Haddad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me see. During the beginning or middle of the COVID response,
Yes, sir.
give out $11 million to one of her friends that only had a post office box,
Yes.
and she's under indictment for that right now.
Not really. Let's get some explanations here, okay? It is. I find it interesting, right? Lina Hidalgo awards an $11 million contract to somebody she knows, and it's an issue. Our governor allocates billions to people he knows, and it's not an issue. I mean, go ahead. And wait. Hold on, Brian. Neil wants to get into the conversation. Neil, come on in.
Not under indictment.
Yeah, she's not. We know that. Yeah. Thank you. Continue, Brian.
Her staff is under indictment. That is correct.
That's correct, but that's not Lina.
Okay, you mean her staff just took it upon herself to do that?
Well, let
should have been reported to Methodist, Kelsey Sebo, anyone. But she awarded that contract to one of her friends that only has a post office box. You don't.
I'll just say,
go ahead, Neil.
Nina's been clear that she believes that it's a political prosecution. She has said that it's a political prosecution with Kim Ogg, who has a strong primary challenger, Kim Ogg, our district attorney. So that has been the contention from Lina's side, that it's a politically motivated prosecution.
Okay,
Kim Ogg.
Hey, let me tell you, Brian. Brian, I want to get everybody in, but I think you made a lot of the points that you want to make. Let me just say that I think I did a good job in correcting some of your points. And with regards to Lina, we'll have to discuss that another day. But I need to bring Cody into the conversation. Cody, I'm sorry you're only going to get 30 seconds. Come on in, Cody.
Oh, that's fine. I don't need much time. I just wanted to add to the previous caller's statement about Hillary Clinton denying the 2016 election results.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
It was actually Trump who denied the 2016 election results because he couldn't accept the fact that he lost the popular vote.
Wow.
Find election fraud and had to disband the committee when they couldn't find the fraud.
Exactly. Thank you for reminding me about that specific part, Cody. But Cody, thank you kindly for calling in. We'll talk tomorrow or some other time that you call in. Anyway, Neil, give me a 15-second closer. Just 10 seconds, actually.
Thanks for allowing me to be here. The Houston Democracy Project. You can Google it, Houston Democracy Project, NeilAquino.com. Wherever you are locally, you can make it.
Thank you. Go ahead. Back to the control room real quick.
Oh, have a great show. Have a good day.
All right. And if you're protesting, wear a helmet, bright old clothes.
My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.